Hello. Yes. Hello, guys. We are all set. Let me send you the link. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Just give me a second. Let me invite everyone else. There are so many people who want to join, as you already know, that we had so many groups, and I'll talk about that. Some students got confused that what they are supposed to do. Now I think everyone is clear. Okay, thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. And let me also share that on our Facebook group. And all of you who are here, all of you who are here, you should invite your friends. If your friends could not come on the group, you can share this link with them. You can share this link with them. It would be great if they can come here and join this session. This is a really interesting session, and this is going to be a very powerful session on research, and it's way better and way more powerful than the previous one. And I have already written some plan here I would discuss with you guys. Before I was coming online, I wrote this down for you guys, and I'll explain what it is so that everyone is all set, everyone is all ready and set. Okay, and thank you for joining, and um I appreciate your patience. And I have conducted this session upon the request of so many students, because the previous session, many people could not join the previous session. So I think we are all set, and we still have 10 minutes to start. So before that, what we can do is you can keep sharing this link with your friends on your college groups, on your class, university groups, and your uh, connections on WhatsApp. So I know, because not everyone could be invited to the groups. So yes, you can invite your friends. And now let's talk about the plan. So first of all, anyone who does not know me, I'm Dr. Hassan Tohid. I am the program director here at the California Institute of Behavioral Neurosciences and Psychology. I am a neuroscientist, and I have written a lot of research papers, a lot of articles related to neuroscience, and I have been on TED Talks. I have delivered a couple of TED Talks. I think many of you already know me, but those who don't know me, I'm just letting you guys know that who I am. And I'm a faculty for neurology and psychiatry for various organizations, and I train students for research, and I train you guys for research. And our research training program is one of the most famous programs in the world. And as you can already see, how many people have already joined, and so many other people will join today. And now, if you guys can hear me, please say yes. If you guys, yes, you can hear me. Very good, very good. Okay, okay, guys, I have opened the chat so that you guys can communicate with me during the breaks, and you can ask any questions as well. But this chat doesn't mean that some people will lose their limits and boundaries. So be respectful, remain in boundaries, and show you are professional. And if you are here to learn research and you are here to get the certificate on research, introduction to research, then behave like a researcher or and a scientist. A scientist is someone who respects everyone, who behaves. So please behave. So I think we already have 281 people. I'm waiting for more people. Once we have like 300, and we will start. And we already have six more minutes. And now, guys, so let's start. Introduction to research. What is the plan? Before we start, the plan is that you invite your friends and your colleagues. Share the link. Share the link. I know many of you sent me messages this morning. My phone was filled with messages, and all of those who sent me messages, they must be laughing too. I got so many messages that please add my friend. The group is full. Please add my friend. So now it's time for you to share the link with your friends. They can attend this session. Now, second thing is, all those who have not subscribed to this YouTube channel, you should subscribe to this channel, because I will be conducting more sessions on research writing, and many more on this on this YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, and you also invite your friends and your classmates to our research writing group on Facebook. That's very important. That's very important. So now, all those who joined the previous session, so let's talk about this. So have you guys already invited your friends? Send them invitation. People are still coming. Some people sent me messages that they will join late. I understand that, but at least you come. And people who joined earlier, this suggests how serious they are about their career, how serious they are about their life. So I congratulate you. I congratulate you. You guys are something. You guys have proven that yes, you guys are something. You guys prioritize your career. So I congratulate all of you who have joined first. So you invite your friends, whoever could not make it to the groups on WhatsApp. So share this link with your friends, with your classmates. Make sure you also subscribe, and you guys subscribe to this channel, because you guys don't have to worry about the future sessions. You will already get the message, and if you guys have already subscribed. Now, the previous session we conducted was on February the 21st. February 21st, the Friday, 2 weeks ago, we conducted that session, and that session became very, very popular, and over 500 students submitted their test, probably 600, I don't even remember. And that took us a while to produce certificates for everyone. So we found a solution. We found a solution that today everything is automatic. After this class ends, I'll share the test link with you. You take the test, you pass the test, passing score is 7. You pass the test, and you download your own certificate. You just provide your name and your email address. We get your information, and you get the certificate on your email. No need to WhatsApp. No need to message us that, oh, I haven't received my certificate. You will receive it today, maximum by tomorrow, on the email. It's a rapid process now, so don't worry about it. And keep checking your junk mail. The certificate may go to your junk mail. So just letting you know that the certificate may go to your junk mail. Now, what's different? Today's session will be a little advanced. I would say it's Introduction to Research 1.0. It's a little advanced, and as we move forward in few months, probably we will conduct another session that will be Introduction to Research 2.0. So, and I'm conducting another session. I need your suggestions on what particular topic you want the free certificate course the next time. Like, do you want systematic reviews? Do you want traditional reviews? Do you want case studies? What exactly do you want to study? Just let me know, and we will cover that. Okay, give suggestions, and we will respect that, and we will see what students want, and I will conduct that session in a few days, and I'll announce another one, and that will be probably in a month or so, or a little earlier. So this will be different. There will be some more additions. So all those students who could not join the previous session, you guys are joining and attending a better version of it. And those who joined before, now you guys will learn something more here today. Now, the test will be, test link will be shared with you after this session ends. After this session ends, a test link will be shared with you on the WhatsApp groups you are on. And that link will be activated only for an hour. Only for an hour. You have 1 hour to pass the test. You will have 1 hour to pass the test, and you can attempt as many times as you can. You just have 1 hour, and the passing score is 7. So make sure you pass it, and then you download it, and the link will be expired in an hour. So if you miss it, you miss it. Then we cannot provide you the certificate. Then you have to wait for the future session. I don't know when the future session will be about for the introduction to research. This is the last time I'm doing it, probably for next few months on this topic. So I want to make it interesting by creating other subjects, other topics. So the test and the certificate will be automatically generated, and it will take some hours. So be patient and keep checking your junk mail. It goes to junk mail many a time. So keep checking your junk mail once you download the certificate. And then you can print it, hang it on your wall, and enjoy it and mention on your CV, because the introduction to research is a subject, is a topic that is well respected when the employers see that on your CV. It is not an ordinary achievement. It is something. Now, number 5, the chat is opened. So behave, show manners, show that you are educated, you are a nice person. And anyone who is not a nice person and whose comments are filthy, or any kind of wrong comments, any racial comments, any abusive comments, our team is looking at it, and that certificate will not be produced for that person. Okay, and now for all the nice students, most of you are nice, I know, and anyone who is not nice, who doesn't belong to a good family, please show that you belong to a good family. Most of you are from good families, I know. Okay, now take notes. Take notes. Today's session, make sure you take notes. Why? Because I'm a firm believer that you should take notes. Never rely on your memory, and the test is going to be difficult. Test is going to be a little confusing and difficult, so make sure you have notes ready. There will be one break after 90 minutes. After 90 minutes, there will be one break. We will take a break for 15 minutes, and I will share a second link with you. And make sure you watch both sessions, because the real test questions start in the second session. So make sure that you don't miss anything. It's very, very important. And now coming to things that what we do, we provide research writing and publishing training. We have Be a Published Author program, as all of you already know. Anyone who wants details, I will not provide it right now, because this is a learning session. But after the session ends, whoever wants to know about Be a Published Author program, the SPSS Statistical Data Analysis Training Program, I'll stay here and I'll tell you what it is. Those who are not interested, they will leave, and they should leave. And those who are interested will stay here, and I will tell them how this program works. And I have an offer for you guys, and I'll mention that in the end. But today is the learning session, so keep it really, really professional, and learn and take notes. And the real thing is knowledge. So make sure you have the knowledge, and the certificate is useless if you don't have knowledge. So now everyone has shared the link with their friends. All those who wanted to join. You will not be able to record this session, and this, yes, very good thing, very good point you have raised. This will go away. This link, I'll remove this link in a few after this session ends, but I will not tell you when. So it will go away. So make sure you enjoy it today, You cannot enjoy it afterwards. So now, have you invited all of your friends already? Have you shared the link already? All the friends who wanted to join, now I think everyone has already joined. 436 people already watching, and probably more will join. We understand that this will be a different session than the February 21st. No more certificates on WhatsApp. The certificates will be emailed to you automatically, and make sure you check your junk mail. And the certificate will take time to get ready. And this session will be different than the previous session. Now, the test, a link will be shared for the test. This time it is not on paper. This test will not be on paper. This will be an electronic link. A link will be shared on the WhatsApp group, and everyone take that test, and in 1 hour the link will expire. You cannot take the test after 1 hour has passed, after this session ends. Number 5, the rule number 5 today, everyone will behave. You guys will behave in a professional manner. No negative comments. If you are nasty, if you are grouchy today, go drink water, take rest, sleep, but don't attend this session. And all those students who are here to learn, the real students, please take notes. Please take notes. It will help you, will tremendously help you. Even in the future, it will help you. And one break after 90 minutes. And now another thing is, whatever you learn, don't hide it. Don't hide it from others. Knowledge is for everyone. So make sure you share it with everyone. Make sure you share it with everyone. Don't hide it. So we are starting. And I understand many of you have the dinner time out there in your countries. So what you guys will do is keep eating and watching and learning at the same time. You guys have done it before. We all used to eat during our classes, hiding from the teachers. But I'm that kind of teacher who encourages that. Please keep eating, enjoy. And now we'll begin the session. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Introduction to research. This session is a 3-hour-long session. Introduction to research. It will be a 5-module session, and we will cover all the necessary things that are needed for introduction to research topic. So now, introduction to research. So here you will learn the basics. Your base will be very, very strong after this session, and you will understand that research is not difficult. Research is not difficult. It is really, really easy, and it is not boring. The reason it is boring is that many teachers who teach research, they are like, they are seriously idle, and they will teach you like this: introduction to research. And this session, we will learn. Anyone will sleep, guys. If somebody teaches like this, anyone will sleep. And the problem is that people probably know the subject, but they don't know how to teach. To teach, you have to be energetic. So that's why many teachers make research boring. And many a times, researchers and teachers themselves don't know about research. They think they know about it, and when you don't know, you cannot convey the message properly. And here you will see the difference today. What should be the research subject and how it should be taught, and what needs to be done, and how you will become a researcher. Trust me, all of you can become researchers. We'll start with what is research. What is research? Research is a combination of 2 words. As you can see, re and search. Re and search. It is a combination of 2 words. Re and search. When you are searching something for the first time, it is research. And when you are searching something for the second time, it is also research. So don't be confused by the word re. Don't be confused by the word re. Research means to search. There are so many definitions, but the best definition that I encourage you to consider as the main definition is the quest of knowledge. Quest of knowledge. Quest of knowledge is the main definition of research that I personally love. I personally love to use. So I encourage you to use that definition. The search of knowledge, quest of knowledge. Finding something, finding an answer, looking for an answer. All of these are definitions. There's no doubt about it. But my favorite definition is the quest of knowledge. Okay, so everyone knows now what is research. So whenever you go for a job interview as a researcher, they may surprise you by asking this question, what is research? So don't ever be confused now and say that research is a combination of two words, re and search. When you are searching something, it's research. When you are searching something for the first time, it is research. And it is second time, it is also research. So it doesn't matter if it's first time or second time. And the quest of knowledge is research. Anytime when we are searching something, we actually are conducting research. And research is in every field. Research is not all the doctors. The biggest misconception many doctors and social science students have, that research is only in our field. No, research is in every field. We have internet today because we had research in the technology world, in the computer field. We have computer. You can look at me live. You can look at me through this camera. You can hear my voice. All of this became possible because we have research. All of this became possible because we have research. So remember this. Research is everywhere. Every field has research. Now, the types of research. We will talk about the types of research. Primary versus secondary. Primary research versus secondary research. Primary research is something that Albert Einstein used to do. Studying something for the first time. Discovering something new for the whole world, including him. That is called primary research. And secondary research is when you are studying something that is new only for you. Everyone knows it, but when you are studying something that is new only for you, that is secondary research. So this is a very good definition. But remember, those scientists who have their projects in the labs, those scientists who have their projects in labs, they are leading the projects. They may be studying something that was already done, but we also call that as primary research. So don't get confused that he has a lab, he's studying something that has already been done, but why are we calling him primary researcher? Because if somebody's leading a project, we also call it as primary research because it is his project. So primary research is something that Albert Einstein used to do. Primary research is something that Albert Einstein used to do, discovering something from scratch, bringing something new to the world, something that is new for him and new for the whole world. But the secondary research is something that is new only for you. Now, let's take an example of medicine. When somebody discovers, anyone who discovered antibiotics for the first time, the medication antibiotics, when he discovered that for the first time, Was he or she the primary researcher or the secondary researcher? She was the primary researcher. Now, if somebody studies antibiotics today, will he be a primary researcher or a secondary researcher? He would be a secondary researcher. Now, the question is, for the rest of your life, will you be a primary researcher or you will be a secondary researcher? If you go on a journey of science and you become a scientist, if you become a researcher, will you be a primary researcher or you will be a secondary researcher? You know what is the answer to this question? Many students say that I will be a secondary researcher. That's what many students say. But guys, remember, it's a wrong answer. Why can't you be a primary researcher? Why can't you be a future Einstein? Why can't you get Nobel Prize? You all can get Nobel Prize. You all can get the greatest prize or the greatest recognition in the world, in the research world, by being a primary researcher, by inventing things, by discovering things. In the medicine world, unfortunately, not many places provide this opportunity for new researchers. Look, I lost electricity, I guess. Came back. So primary research in the medicine world, that's what I was saying. In the medicine world, the primary research is not encouraged for the young students and doctors at many places. At various universities, they don't encourage it. But for the engineers, most of the places I have seen, and the students, my own students, they tell me that their universities, they encourage them to be primary researchers by inventing things, by discovering things. Like there was a student who discovered a solar car, an engineering student. There was a student who discovered some kind of eyeglasses for somebody, for some patients. And so the point is, he was an engineer. So engineers are always doing primary research, and they are always doing primary research projects, and they always try to invent things, discover things. But in medicine field, what is stopping you guys? So just remember, anyone can do it. Anyone from healthcare industry or engineering or any other field or chemistry, wherever you are, even agriculture, yes, you can be a primary researcher. So why can't we be primary researcher? What stops us? What stops us from becoming researcher? The problem is, what stops us from becoming exceptionally well-known scientist and researcher? Remember this elephant. Now you will say, what is he talking about? How come elephant came in here? Is Dr. Tauheed crazy? Is he a crazy person? How come elephant come in here? Okay, let's make an African elephant. African elephant. Big ears. Okay. So what happens is that we all have seen elephants in the zoos. They tie these elephants with these small chains, and this is a pole. These elephants, they can break these chains anytime. If they just move this, do you think this chain they tie these elephants with are that strong? No, they are not. They can easily break this chain. But they don't break this chain. You know why? Because when this elephant was a baby, they tied this baby elephant with this chain. This baby elephant, he tried to break it, but he could not break it. So he eventually started to believe that I cannot break it. And he stopped trying. And this happens today. That's how they keep elephants in the zoos. When the elephants are babies, they tie them with these chains. And baby elephants, when they cannot break him, they they believe that we cannot break him, so they stop trying, they stop breaking him. And when they have grown up, now this elephant can easily break it, but at some point in his life he was told to believe that you cannot break it. So this elephant doesn't even try. This elephant doesn't even try, although he can break it any time. And this elephant is not too different from we human beings. At some point in our lives, we all were told that you cannot be successful in your life. You cannot be an exceptional scientist. You cannot be a researcher. You cannot get Nobel Prize. You cannot get this. You cannot be well-renowned scientist. You cannot get international fame. You cannot invent anything. You cannot discover anything. People told us so many things. They kept telling us wrong information. They were those chains, those false beliefs, they were those chains. And you tried to break it initially when you were young, but you could not break it. So now when you are young adults, you are like this elephant. You can break it easily, but you don't want to try because you believe that, yes, I cannot do it. So remember, we are not elephants. We are human beings. You can break this chain anytime. Break the chain, break the barrier. Anyone who said any hurtful comments to you, anyone who said that you cannot do anything, just break the chain. False belief, break it and become what you're meant to be. Become the scientist, become the researcher, invent things. Guys, world needs more inventors. We need people to use mind, to use their thinking capacity. So from now onwards, start to believe that, yes, I can be a researcher, I can be a published author, I can achieve my goals, I can be a successful scientist, I can invent things, I can discover things. Keep saying that every day and you will start believing it. Say that as many times as you can and you'll start believing it. And don't sit with those people who make fun of you, who put you down. Don't spend time with those people. They are poisons in your life. Stay away from those people. Now, who is a researcher? Who is a researcher? Who is a real researcher? A researcher is not the one who has a degree. People think that if I have a degree, I will be a researcher. No. There are people who have done PhDs, but they are not real researchers. People who have done masters, bachelors, they don't know what research is all about. They don't know how to be a researcher. This is not what a researcher is. Research is a skill. Just like in sports, you don't need any degree to be a sportsman. Research is like that kind of skill. Like a driver, you don't need a degree to be a driver. A painter, you don't need a degree to be a painter. Although if there is one, that will definitely help, but you don't need it, to be very honest. So anyone can be a researcher. And you can become researcher today, right now, if you just change your mental attitude and you decide to be a researcher. So who is the real researcher? A real researcher is the one, remember, even the real researcher is not the one who discovers things, who invents things. Because not every researcher will have the capacity. There could be several reasons. So a real researcher is not the one who is always discovering things and bringing new things to the world. A new researcher is the one who brings a new question to the world. If he doesn't discover something, he leaves something for the future scientists to discover something. A real researcher is the one who brings a new question, who proposes a new question. This is what a real researcher is all about. A real researcher is the one who proposes a new question, who brings the new who brings something new to the world. And another property of a researcher is the ability to think. You need to learn to develop to think. You need to learn to develop the capacity to think. We have been taught to memorize in the modern education system. Unfortunately, at many places, they are teaching people just to memorize things. We are human beings. We are not parrots. Parrots are there to memorize. And monkeys are there to copy. But human beings are not there to copy, and human beings are not there to memorize. Human beings are there to think. Use your mind, learn to think. Read books on thinking. Read books by Edward de Bono on thinking. That will teach you how to think. If you want to be a researcher, you need to learn to think. How the thinking is done. Most people don't even know how to think. When they are in trouble, they are in problem, they give up because they never learn to think. Learn to think, practice thinking, study thinking. Thinking is a subject. Do you know people have written hundreds and hundreds of books on the subject of thinking? So get those books. Learn to think. Now you understand who is the real researcher. Now we'll talk about, we know secondary research, primary research. Now we'll talk about some other types of research that are very, very important. Those difficult terminologies that scare you. You are always scared when you hear those difficult terminologies. Let's talk about that. Now you will never ever be scared of those things. They are very, very easy. Simple. So what is that? Number one. In fact, I should be here on this side. Okay. We all have heard this word, descriptive research and analytical research. And many of us are scared of it. Now, after this session, you will never ever be scared of this. This is very, very easy. Very, very basic. What is the second thing we need to talk about today? This is a challenge for most students. Basic versus applied. Basic research versus applied research. Guys, it is very easy. Don't get scared of it. I'll tell you the secrets to remember it. How easy it is. You don't need to remember or memorize. You need to understand. That's what the human beings are for. Remember, I told you, learn to think. So if you learn to think and you learn in a thinking manner, you will never forget things. Use your mind. Basic versus applied research. Descriptive versus analytical research. And let's do that here. Theoretical versus empirical. Theoretical versus empirical research. And qualitative versus quantitative research. Have you heard these dangerous names? These scary names. They will no more be scary names for you after today's session. Descriptive versus analytical research, basic research versus applied research, theoretical versus empirical research, qualitative versus quantitative research, mixed research, and what else is left? What else is left? Inductive versus deductive. reasoning. That is actually reasoning, but that can also be known as like research. So if you understand these 6 things, you will be on the top of the world. You will be in top 1% scientists in the world. You can go and ask these questions to anyone who is working in a lab or anywhere, any researcher, any senior, any junior, any professor. Go and ask this. Unfortunately, many professors cannot answer these questions. Unfortunately. Now, let's start with descriptive versus analytical. So what is descriptive research? When you are studying a what and who, where, when, that's descriptive. Simple. Analytical is when you are studying a why and a how. How difficult it is. Does it become easy now? Analytical research is why and a how. Descriptive research is who, what, when, where. Now, case studies mostly, and case series, and cross-sectional studies, they are descriptive studies. The surveys, they are descriptive studies. And ex post facto research, that's also the part of descriptive, because that's non-randomized, and we'll talk about that. Don't be scared of this word non-randomized. Don't be scared of it. Just remember, ex post facto research is the part of descriptive research. Ex post facto, ex post, ex post facto, facto. What does that mean? I'll talk about that too. So descriptive research, now how do you remember it? What, when, where, who. Analytical research is why and how. The descriptive research something that is very important about descriptive. Guys, this is very, very important point about descriptive research. It generates the hypothesis. It doesn't test the hypothesis. Now, all those who are focusing here with me, they will really, really benefit. Descriptive research is where you generate hypothesis. Analytical research, you don't generate hypothesis. In analytical research, you test hypothesis. In the analytical research. Now let's see how many of you will remember it. So descriptive research is a what, where, when. Analytical research is why and a how. You study the cause and effect here, and you usually have 2 groups, like the case control, the cohort, or the clinical trials. Randomized. Non-randomized will go here because you don't have another group here. So this is what you need to remember about descriptive. That's it. Now, descriptive versus analytical is done. There is nothing more to it that you need to remember while learning the basics of research. Now, basic research versus applied research. What is the basic research versus applied research? Guys, basic research versus applied research. The biggest misconception about basic research is that probably basic research is the research of basic science. No. The basic research is not the research of basic science. What is basic research? Basic research has 2 more names. pure research. So don't be confused when you hear the word pure research or fundamental research. Fundamental research. Pure research and fundamental research. Pure research, fundamental research, basic research, they are the same things. And they are compared with the applied research. So what are those? What are those things? What are those things? Remember, basic research is a research. When you have a research question whose answer comes out as yes or no. Basic research is a research where you have a research question whose answer comes out as yes or no. That's it. The easiest definition of basic research. For example, is tuberculosis prevalent in India? The answer would either be yes or no. We don't care if it's yes or no. That's none of our concern right now. We care about is the question, is hepatitis common in the United States? Yes or no, we don't care about it. What we care about is that can the question be in a yes and no format? So whenever you have a research question whose answer comes out as yes or no, it is basic research, pure research, fundamental research. Same thing. Pure research, basic research, fundamental research. Same thing. Applied. What is applied? The same research question can be converted into an applied research question anytime. The same research question can be converted into an applied research question anytime. How do we treat tuberculosis? Here the question was, is tuberculosis prevalent in India? Let's say the answer is yes. The applied will be, how do we treat tuberculosis? How do we manage tuberculosis? How do we reduce the cases of tuberculosis? How do we prevent tuberculosis? How do we restrict tuberculosis? How do we manage tuberculosis? Whatever. Actually, the solution. So applied focuses on the solution, basic focuses on the yes or no. Applied focuses on the solution, basic research focuses on a yes or no. Applied focuses on the solution. So tuberculosis, is it prevalent in Pakistan? The answer would be yes or no. Applied would be, how do we reduce the cases of tuberculosis in Pakistan? Is malaria common in Egypt? Yes or no. How do we reduce the cases of malaria in Egypt? Applied. So did you notice that the applied starts with the word how? Another thing to note, another thing for your notes today. Applied usually starts with the word how. Basic does not start with the word how. Basic can be, is alcoholism common in Europe? Yes or no. Is alcoholism common in China? Yes and no. So now basic, pure, and fundamental research, this concept should be very, very clear. It's yes and no. Applied is a solution. But now, where will we put this question? Where will we put this question? What is the pathophysiology of tuberculosis? What is the mechanism of tuberculosis? Is it basic or is it applied? Is it basic or is it applied? The mechanism of tuberculosis, the mechanism of cystic fibrosis, how cystic fibrosis develops. Is it basic or is it applied? Is it basic or applied? What is the mechanism behind tuberculosis? How tuberculosis is developed? What is the mechanism behind cystic fibrosis? What are the reasons? What are the causes of XYZ problem? What are the causes of XYZ problem? What are the causes of the reasons of XYZ problem? Let's say it's economic research. It's research on economy. What are the causes of poverty? What are the causes of inflation? Guys, remember, anyone who says applied, congratulations, he's wrong. Applied is always about solution. Applied is always about solution. Applied is always about solution. Basic, it's basic. Fundamental pure research, because basic increases your understanding. It gives you the background, the understanding of the subject. That is basic research. The cause, the risk factors, the reasons, signs and symptoms. All of this is basic research. Yes and no is basic research. So yes and no is not only the yes and no is not just basic. Or I would say basic is not just yes and no. Basic is what are the causes, what are the risk factors, what causes it, what are the signs and symptoms. But applied is always the solution, always the treatment. Applied is always the treatment. Applied is always the treatment. Now, theoretical versus empirical. Theoretical research is when somebody gives a theory, right? It's a philosophical research. But empirical is when you do something in the lab, when you have like an experiment, or in the field, when the scientist does something, a project, the research you see it going on, usually in the labs, it's empirical. That's it. Empirical is like clinical trials or observational studies. That's empirical. So that's pretty easy. Basic and applied is done. Theoretical and empirical, there was nothing to it. Don't get scared of it. Now, qualitative versus quantitative, the most scariest thing in the world for many. Qualitative versus quantitative. It's not a scary thing, it's very easy. When you are studying the quality, it's qualitative. When you are studying the quantity, it's quantitative. How easy can it be? So now, many people will say, what do you mean by quality? What do I mean by quality? Again, it means what, where, when, how, and why will also be here. But here in quantitative, it will be how much, how many days, how many hours, how much percentage. This is how and why, usually how and why, and this is how much. How much? So whenever you have a research project where there are numbers involved, and now you have to do statistics, that is quantitative research. Quantitative research. Remember, not all research projects will have statistics involved. A beginner thinks that research means statistics and I have to do statistics. No, guys, statistician is a different profession. Research is a different profession. They're two different things. Can they be connected together? Yes, if it's quantitative research. Do you have to be a statistician to be a researcher? You should at least know some basics, maximum at the intermediate level, but you can still be a researcher without it. Qualitative research is when you are studying a mechanism, a philosophy, a theory, hypothesis, which is non-numerical, non-numbered. Here, the numbers are involved. Qualitative research, quantitative research. Now the question is, can a research be qualitative and quantitative at the same time? The answer is yes. How was it done and how many people did it? Why was it done? And how many hours did it take to do it? One project can be qualitative and quantitative at the same time. One project can be descriptive and analytical at the same time. Yes, depends on what you are studying. You are the king, you are the boss of your project. You are the boss of your project. So, what are you studying? It's up to you. Can a research be basic and applied at the same time? Yes. What causes tuberculosis and how do we treat it? Can a research be theoretical and empirical? Of course, why not? That's why we have this broad category of mixed research, where we combine different kinds of research. That's why we call it as mixed research design. Mixed research. Now, from now onwards, you should never ever be scared of these terminologies. There are two more terminologies: explanatory research and exploratory research. So, as the name suggests, it's quite simple. When you are explaining something, that's explanatory. When you are exploring something, that's exploratory. Can a research be explanatory and exploratory at the same time? Of course. So just add one more: explanatory and exploratory, the sixth one, before we come to inductive versus deductive. Before we come to inductive versus deductive. Guys, all of these can be the same project. Don't get scared of it. A research can be basic research and it could be descriptive. Basic research, and if you are studying the risk factor, it's a cohort study. So yes, it can be analytical. You need to understand they are not different things, they are the same things. This is the magic. They are the same thing. People think that they are different. No, don't get scared. Now, inductive versus deductive. Inductive versus deductive. Inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. It can be inductive research, deductive research. So remember, let's say you saw this marker and you said, oh, that means marker is red. Then you said, okay, I'll test this theory. You develop a theory. Markers are red. Okay, you made this in your mind. Now you said, okay, I'll observe people. You observe 4 or 5 people and you saw that they also have red markers. So you have developed this theory that yes, markers are red. And then you gave a theory that all markers are red, which can be absolutely wrong. Which can be absolutely wrong. This is called inductive reasoning. Or you saw a marker, you said all markers are red. This looks like all markers are red. You saw 4 or 5 people, they have red markers, but then you also saw 4 or 5 people who have a blue marker. So you said, oh, so all markers are not red. You develop a theory, all markers are not red. In inductive reasoning, you generate the hypothesis or the theory. You generate a theory. Just like here in descriptive, you generate a theory. In inductive, you generate a theory or hypothesis. In deductive, you test a hypothesis or you test a theory. You test a theory. What does that mean? You have nothing, you haven't seen anything, and you read a question, all markers are red. Now you have this theory. So now you will test this theory. You will look at people who have markers and you will analyze. And you found out, no, not all markers are red. So you You cancel this hypothesis. You said, no, this is not correct. This hypothesis is wrong. All markers are not red. Like, for example, another example of inductive reasoning. Another example of inductive reasoning would be, men are always late at work. Somebody said that. Now you will test it. You will see some men are late, some are not. You observe that, you got the data. So now you cancel the hypothesis. No, not all men are always late at work. Deductive will be, your friend came late. You are at work and one of your friends, he came late. So you said, okay, so all men are late. So you will say, okay, I'll test it. Now you test it. Now what do? You do the observation. Actually, in easy word, I won't say you use the word test here. So now you will generate a hypothesis. How you will generate a theory or hypothesis? You will say, okay, all men are late. Maybe you say all men in my office are late. So you develop a hypothesis. Now you will test it. You will look at all the men coming in the office in the morning hours, and you notice that most of them actually are on time. So you said, not all men are late. The hypothesis is that not all men are late. So you started with an observation of one person, that is inductive. And then you generate a hypothesis. Here, you already have a hypothesis or theory, a famous statement, somebody said that. You haven't seen anyone, now you will test it. So that's why we call it as testing the theory, testing the hypothesis. I hope this is very clear. I have given the best example. Here, let's say you saw a dog who is very, very fat, and you say dogs are fat. Let's test it. You saw 4 more dogs, and you say, oh, and luckily or unluckily, they all were fat. So you have come up with a conclusion that all dogs are fat, which could be wrong. Or you saw a dog that is fat, and you do the observation, and you notice that 2 are fat, 2 are not. Then you say half of the dog are fat. So you start with an observation first. Here you start with the theory first, and you test that theory in deductive reasoning. I think this is the best example I can give. Now, how do I know if I'm doing a research project? How do I know my research project is scientific? What does it mean to be scientific? What does it mean to be scientific? 3 things. Reliability, reliability, replicability, and validity. Reliability, replicability, and validity. Reliability is, if I repeat this procedure, or if somebody else repeats my project, will he get the same results? If he gets the same results after repetition, then your research is reliable. Replicability, is my research repeatable? That means, yes, my research is replicable. It's repeatable. And if after repeating, somebody else gets the same result, then it is reliable too. And validity, what is validity? The integrity of your results. Integrity of your results. How accurate, how good your results are. The integrity of your results, validity. Validity is how accurate your results are. Integrity, validity is integrity of your results. Replicability is repeatability. Reliability is, will the other people get the same result? If these three things are there in your project, then your project is scientific. We have heard this so many times that XYZ, this is scientific or non-scientific, this is scientific or non-scientific. This is what is scientific and non-scientific. That's what they actually mean. People say, for example, neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, is non-scientific. What do they mean by that? That it's not reliable, it's not replicable, and it's not valid. That's what they mean. Whenever you hear the word that I'm talking from the scientific perspective, that's what they mean. Scientific, scientific, this is scientific. So don't ever now get confused. So this is it for the module 1. So we have finished the module 1, which was the longest module. So don't get scared. We have 4 more modules to cover and we'll be done. So we studied what is research. We studied primary versus secondary research. We studied who is the real researcher. We studied the types of research: descriptive versus analytical, basic versus applied, theoretical versus empirical, qualitative and quantitative, deductive versus inductive, mixed research. And now then we discussed explanatory and exploratory as well. And we also discussed the scientific approach. How do you know your project is scientific? And that completes the module 1. And trust me, guys, other modules will be easier and shorter. Now, you are in top 1% people of the world. You are in top 1% people of the world. Who know this. Now, we'll start module 2. Module 2. What is module 2? Module 2 is the research process. How research is done. What is the step-by-step process? If you understand it, you will be a researcher wherever you go. So what is the research process? Write down these steps. Remember these steps. Absorb these steps. Research process starts with the problem. That first of all, do you have a research problem? When you have a research problem, you develop a question. Do you have a question or hypothesis? So now the point is, both of them can be the same thing, or they can be different things. Whatever you are exploring, whatever you are trying to find is the problem. And the research question and hypothesis is the question you come up with. For example, the problem is that most cancer patients, colon cancer patients with 4th stage, do not survive. That's the problem. The research question will be, how many patients survive, or how do we treat colon cancer? How do we prevent colon cancer? Now again, it becomes applied, or you can keep it basic too. Is colon cancer prevalent in this XYZ population? Now, the next thing is, once you have the problem, you have the question, the next thing is the design. What research design do you choose? What research design do you choose? You have to come up with the research design. Now let's talk about the research design. What is a research design? Guys, research design means the plan how you conduct your research, means what kind of study you will use. So to choose a design, you should know how many kinds of designs are there. You cannot develop research design if you don't know how many kinds of research design are there? And we'll talk about that. I think I should make a bigger triangle because this is not actually a triangle what I'm making. This is something more comprehensive and more important than a triangle. This is a pyramid, not the Egyptian pyramid, but this is the study design pyramid. If you understand this, you understand the whole research world. By far, the most important part of this course is this pyramid. If you understand this, you understand the whole research. Research will be a piece of cake for you. Research will never ever be difficult for you. Study design pyramid shows all possible kinds of research studies. That's it. You should know how many kinds of research studies are there. And then whenever you want to do research, you will choose any of those as your research design and you are done. So what are those? At the bottom, we have in vitro test tube research. The word vitro is a Latin word. It means test. It means glass. Glass. That's how we call it, test tube. So when you have the test tubes involved, in Spanish we call vidrio the glass. So test tube research is at the bottom. That's one research design. Then comes the animal research. Wow, animal research. I don't need to explain what animal research is. Animal research. You have animals in the lab. Here you have test tube in the lab, you have animals in the lab, and these two kinds are not for non-healthcare related students, not for non-clinicians. These two are only for clinicians. If you are an economy student, if you are a finance student, if you are a business student and you are studying research, then these two designs are not your designs. You won't have to worry about that. This is for clinicians, healthcare, biology students. Then comes the ideas, opinions, and editorial. Ideas, opinions, and editorials. This can be in any research. And then comes the case, reports, and series. Then comes the observational studies. There are 3 observational studies: cross-sectional study, case control study, and cohort study. And then comes the clinical trials and randomized. And then comes the systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So this is a study design pyramid, and these are the possible kinds of research designs. And from bottom to top, these are all for the clinicians. And from here onwards, it's for non-clinicians too. Now, anything at the bottom is the weakest evidence, the weakest study design, because it is more subjected to bias, or I can say it has more chances of bias, and it is less related to human treatment. In the clinical world, I'm talking about clinical world now, this is the weakest evidence because it is less related to human treatment and it has more bias. And then the animal research, it is less related to human treatment than this. but it is more related to human treatment than this, and it can have more bias. Ideas, opinions, and editorials. Ideas, opinions, and editorials. Ideas, opinions, and editorials. Ideas, opinions, and editorials. They are ideas, opinions, and editorial. They are subjected to bias. Ideas, opinions, and editorials. They are the experts' views, so they can have bias. Okay, so they are the third weakest. So what is the strongest research in the world? The strongest research would be systematic reviews and meta-analysis, and that is what you will write when you join our Be a Published Author program. All those who are interested in the Be a Published Author program, you will join and you will learn to write a systematic review, or you will be writing traditional reviews. So systematic review is the strongest research evidence in the world because it is more related to human treatment and it has less chances of bias because we check the quality and all. Now, case reports and series, then cross-sectional, then case control, they are observational studies. You must have heard the name observational studies. Observational studies. And then comes the clinical trials, and then comes the systematic reviews. So now, what is the, observational studies are cross-sectional, case control, and cohort. All the blue ones. They are the observational studies. They are the observational studies. Case report and series. When you are studying one person, that is case report. That's a different study design, how it is done. That's a different situation, different story. You need to get the case study course, 1-day course to understand this. And I have developed that course. You can get that to understand what is it, or what is this, and how to write a case report. And case report is one person when you have more than one person, or you simply have one group. That's called as case series. Case report is one person or one patient. If it's a non-clinician doing research, then one person, or it could be any unit, one unit. You can do case report on a case study on a city, on a country. Case study, when it's published, is called as case report. And the word case report is actually confined to clinicians. Case series is when you have more than one person. Now, these three are observational studies. Cross-sectional study, case control study, and cohort study. Cross-sectional study is when you are studying the prevalence. Now we're talking about observational studies. Prevalence of the study, and we also call it as snapshot. Snapshot. We are looking at the prevalence of the study. The survey studies, interviews and surveys, we conduct those things. Those are cross-sectional studies. We are studying the survey, the census, when the country counts people, how many people live in this country. That's also a cross-sectional study. What is happening at one point in time? That's cross-sectional. And what is happening at multiple point in time? That is longitudinal, and that would be cohort. Longitudinal, don't get scared of the word longitudinal. Longitudinal is what is happening at multiple points in time, and what is happening at single point in time, that's cross-sectional. Now, case control. So to understand cross-sectional, case control, and cohort, you need to understand the movie Back to the Future. You saw that movie Back to the Future. In that movie, they sometimes go into the past and they sometimes go into the future. Sometimes they go into 1985. That's present. That's their present. Sometimes they're in the present. Sometimes they go in the past, 1955, and sometimes they go into the future, 2015. So if you understand that movie, you understand observational studies. Cross-sectional studies, what is happening at one point in time. So let's say present. Case control is what is happening in the past. 1985, let's say. Cohort study is when you look into the future. When you look into the future. Cohort study is when you look into the future, and that is 2035. But now the problem is, do we always go into the future in cohort? No. There are two types of cohort. In one type of cohort, we go into the past as well, and we call it as retrospective cohort. So now this is very important. In cohort and in case control, we go into the past in both of them. If we go into the past in cohort, we call it as retrospective cohort. If we go into the future, we call it as prospective cohort. Prospective cohort. So these are the types. Now, one thing, guys, we will take a break. It's about to be 90 minutes, and we'll continue after a 10-minute, 15-minute break, 15-minute break. Okay, and when I tell you it's break time, my video will stop. So don't think that I'm gone. I'll tell you, you will still hear me, and I'll tell you that now take a break. Just letting you know. At that time, when my voice is there, but my video stops, that means it's a break time. So case report and series, and then the observational studies, cross-sectional, case control, and then the cohort, and then the clinical trials. Clinical trials. And these three, cross-sectional, case control, and cohort, they are the observational studies. In cross-sectional, we stay in one point in time, that means maybe present, and we look at the prevalence of the studies of the disease or anything. We check the prevalence. That's why we call it a snapshot. Case control, when you go into the past, 1985. Cohort, when you go into the future or you go into the past. Doesn't matter. Cohort can be future or past. But now the problem is, in case control, what do we do? We study rare diseases. We study diseases. We know the disease. It's a rare disease. We go into the past. We study the risk factor. And we have two groups, cases and controls. One are healthy people. We go into the past and we check how many of them had any risk factor. So we found a risk factor, so we can say, okay, because of this factor, some patients develop this disease. In the cases, controls did not develop the disease. So they developed the disease. So because of this risk factor is associated with this case, with this disease. So we are studying the disease. We know the disease. We are looking, we don't know the risk factor. We go into the past and we look at the risk factor. How do we go into somebody's past? By asking questions. By clinical history, by medical records, electronic records. That's how we go into somebody's past. So you go into somebody's past and you found out he had risk factor, he developed this rare disease because of the risk factor. That's case control. But now the cohort can be of two types too. So one of them is the past too. That's the problem. Case control is also past, cohort is also past, and cohort is also future. So now here, you know the risk factor, and you have a population, healthy population. You will look at them for next 10, 20 years, maybe 30 years. Some studies can last to 35 years. Some patients die in between. Study is going on, and that is 2045. And now you notice that, okay, people living in this locality, they had this risk factor of lung cancer. Now they develop the lung cancer. So you go into the future and the patients will develop disease in front of you. That's why these studies are very, very slow, very, very difficult to conduct, and very expensive. because some patients will die, some patients will be lost. You don't know where they are, they moved, you never know. So the cohort, prospective cohort, is difficult to do. Retrospective cohort, how different it is from case control. Now, if we are going into the past in cohort and we are going into the past in case control, what is the difference? Guys, the difference is here the disease and the risk factor both have happened before in the past somewhere. In case control, you have the patient in front of you, you know the disease. Here, you don't know the disease. In retrospective cohort, you don't know the disease. You will go to a particular hospital or particular factory and you will talk to the owner. You will say, 20 years ago in 1995, 1999 probably, or 2000, you had an explosion of a chemical in your factory, and some of them must have developed some disease. I need the data of your employees who were affected by that poison. Can I talk to them? And he gives you the information. Now you call them, you meet with them, you found out that some have already died, some are already alive, some are healthy, but some have developed a strange kind of cancer. And that developed 10 years ago in 2010. So you don't know the disease. Here you know the disease. Here you're focusing on the risk factor. You know the risk factor. Here your focus is the disease. So this is the key difference, guys. You can go and ask this question to even the most expert researcher you ever met. Go and ask these questions. Unfortunately, 0.1% people will be able to answer this question correctly. I asked this question as a fun among a scientific community group, and there were so many experienced scientists, they could not tell the difference between retrospective cohort and case control. People don't know the difference. They say that in both we go into the past. Then what is the difference? Oh, we study the risk factor. In both, you are looking at the risk factor. What is the difference? In case control, the disease is in front of you, you know the disease. But in cohort retrospective, you go into the past and disease is somewhere in the past. You don't know what disease they develop. You are studying that what this risk factor does. Your focus is mainly the risk factor. Here, your focus is the disease. And you don't know the risk factor. You study and you go, you know the risk factor after the reports. That's how you differentiate between case control and retrospective cohort. Now I can challenge anyone. Go and ask. See how many people can answer this. Enjoy this process. Go to your seniors, your juniors, your research fellows, anyone you know, and enjoy this process. Ask them, what is the difference between retrospective cohort and case control? How do you differentiate? Let's see how many can answer. Okay, and then clinical trials. In clinical, second best evidence, clinical trials. So what are clinical trials? When you manipulate the environment. Clinical trial has 3 names. We also call them as experiment, and we also call them interventional studies. So interventional studies, experiments, and clinical trials are one and the same thing. If you are a non-clinician, then you call it as interventional study or experiment, because you are doing an intervention. So when you do an intervention, that's an experiment. These are not experimental studies. They are observational studies. So now you know what is the word experiment all about? The word experiment, this is what experiment is. When you do something with the patient, when you manipulate the environment, you do an intervention, that's experiment. If it's a patient related, drug and patient related, or if it's patient related, we call it as clinical trial. If it's not patient related, we call it as interventional study, or we call it as experiment. So always now remember difference between experiment and observation. These are observational studies, and this is experiment, the clinical trial. And then comes the systematic reviews and meta-analysis. If you need to understand more and go deeper into this concept, then go and watch the research methodology course that I have. And sometime I will conduct a course on research methodology or research designs, and then you will study this in deeper detail. So now, which one is the strongest research evidence? Systematic reviews and meta-analysis. Which one is the weakest evidence? In vitro. Which is stronger evidence than in vitro? Animal. Then what is stronger than animal? Ideas. What is stronger than ideas? Case reports. What is stronger than case reports? Cross-sectional. What is stronger than cross-sectional? Case control. Cross-sectional is weaker than case control. This is stronger. Case reports are weaker than cross-sectional. So remember this difference. But now the thing is, this is just the perception of the scientist. If you have a case control study with 100,000 patients and you have a cohort study with only 10 patients, well, by the way, that's not a good example. Let's say 1,000 patients and 100,000 patients. Which one will be stronger? Now, I'll support this. This is stronger because of the sample size. So yes, we can beat the study design pyramid when it comes to the sample size. So this is what the study design is. Now, when you have the research problem at hand, you have the question and hypothesis ready. Now you decide which of these projects, which of these study design you will use, and now you will start working on it. Now you will select the unit of your study. Is it the patients? Is it the disease? Is it a city? Is it a town? Is it particular condition? What exactly do you want to study? The unit of study. Once that is done, then you start collecting data. Now, how the data collection is done in the lab? If it's in vitro, whatever you are doing, conducting in the lab, in the test tube, that's you are collecting data. Animal research, whatever you are looking at after doing something with the animal experiment, those are experiments, remember, because you're doing something with the animals, manipulation. So that is, again, that is because you are doing something, you are doing an intervention, that is an animal study, and that is an experiment, and that is a slight stronger evidence than in vitro. And how do you collect data? Whatever you're doing is your data. You will just write it down. That's your data collection. Now, same thing in case report. Whatever questions you asked for your case study, whatever you did to meet that pace, meet that patient, whatever you did, that's your data collection. In observational study, you are conducting surveys and question, maybe you are doing phone calls. That's your data collection. So don't get scared of data collection. You have done that before. Data collection is very easy. Whatever you do in the lab is data collection. Or outside the lab for your project, that's data collection. For clinical trial, if you're testing a medication and you have patients, whatever you saw, whatever you did and you saw, you are collecting data. And this is exactly what you will mention in your method section. And then same thing with the systematic reviews and meta-analysis. Whatever you collect, that is your data. Now, once data is done, you analyze it. If it's mathematical data, is quantitative, you do statistical data analysis. Now you need probably a statistician's help in the lab. Remember, you don't have to be a statistician to be a researcher. You can hire a statistician. You get the help of a statistician to analyze that data. And if it's qualitative, then you just do the interpretation of that data verbally or by charts, by tables, by figures, by diagrams, by pictures. That's how you analyze the data. If it's non-numerical, then the next step is, once you have analyzed it, now write it down and publish it. But the question is, the last question of this module, why do we write it down? Why do we write it down? Guys, remember, I gave this example before, that all the great scientists that have gone past, I mean, the famous names we know, they became famous because they wrote something down. For example, Isaac Newton's law of gravity. Everyone knew that if we drop things, they will fall down. If we drop things, they will fall down. Everyone knew gravity. Do you think people did not know that apple will fall down? Do you think Newton was the first one to know this? No. The only difference is he wrote it down. He wrote it down during his times. And we know today now that the law of gravity was actually discovered by Isaac Newton. This is the power of writing. That's why we write it down. To establish a fact, we need to write down the findings, otherwise they will go away from your mind, and your research can actually serve people in the future. They can expand your question and further explore something into it, and you can help humanity because of that. That's why we write it down. Now, module 2 is over. Thank you. And now we will have a 15-minute break. And right after 15 minutes, I'll share a second link with you and we will continue. So take a break, have a glass of water, get fresh, and I'll come back to you and I'll share a new link on the group with you. Thank you.